Hello everyone and welcome back to another live stream on the Babbling Irons channel. Today it's another transfer show with the most recent news being Craig Dawson once again. We thought he'd be off in the summer to Wolves and it looks like that rumour's gone, well not rumour, that link has gone full circle into January and looks like he's got his heart still set on that move back up north. And lads, how are we feeling about it? Just initial thoughts from that.
I'll be short and sweet, not that bothered. Fine, see you later. Cheers mate. It's been a great 2 years. You've done well, but cheers, see you later, bye.
Sloth, anything different, or does that kind of summarise your feelings as well?
I mean, that's pretty brutal, Mike.
To be honest, mate, I never really wanted him to come. He has done very well, and I've said that. But the fact of the matter is, he's 32. He wants to go. Thanks very much, mate. Off you go. Let's honour his wishes. So, yeah, it sounds harsh, but ultimately, the guy doesn't want to be here. So let's let him go, right?
There's a few things. There's a few things we'll get onto this video, but there's a few things we need to speak about in terms of Craig Dawson and also the impact of January as well, because we are already short at centre back. We've got Zuma, who is almost always going to be injured every 2 or 3 games. Again, another one that's been niggled with injury since he joined. And then you're left with kind of Ogbonna and Kera. Ogbonna, again, another one that's had that really long-term injury. So, yes, although Craig Dawson has been a really good servant and ideally he would be replaced by someone who is a bit better and younger, is doing it in January the right time, or should we wait until the summer? That's the big kind of issue around this transfer at the moment.
Sloth knows what I'm going to say.
I think there's a lot of notion that January is a bad time to buy players, and I just think it's a really weird idea that somehow that's the case. I don't think there's ever a bad time to sign a player when there's one available, because if you think about the impact they can have, let's say, for instance, we had moved earlier for Darwin Núñez, and instead of faffing about until the final day or two of the window, then you're looking potentially. It's a butterfly effect, and it's all ifs and buts. However, you could be looking at us winning the Europa League. So, yes, January can be a difficult time to get players up to speed quickly, but there's never a bad time to sign a player. Look at the impact that Bowen had when he joined in the January transfer window. So, I think we've got to get rid of this notion that it's a bad time to sign a player. I think it's a bad time to sign a bad signing.
I think the question is it a bad time to replace a player? So it's not just you're bringing someone in, it's you have to sell them and then, find that recruitment for someone that you actually want as well.
I think, to be honest, you've got 6 months to prepare for this. So if you can't come into this window fully equipped and ready to replace players, what are you doing as a football club? Quite frankly,
I think when Mike rather coldly gave his summary, it does reflect a lot of kind of what I think. I think Craig Dawson's had a fantastic time with the club. I would like to thank Mr. Dawson for his contributions. However, if we knew about this all across the summer that he wanted to go, why didn't we fix it then? One of Mike and I's biggest bugbears is that there was an incredibly low cost replacement who is homegrown, has all the attributes that we need in a defender, and yet we kept Craig Dawson. And that's nothing against him, but the way our club is run with recruitment is just simply not up to standards.
Let me play devil's advocate here, because Craig Dawson last season was named in that Europa League team of the season. He put in some absolutely world-class performances for us. He was probably one of the key figures of our team last season for the results we did get before it kind of capitulated in the league and we didn't get to where we wanted to in Europa. But are we fans being a bit too eager to let him go, or, especially halfway through a season when we're in a relegation battle now? Do you not think characters like him would be a good asset to keep around the club, at least until the end of this season?
We're going to lose in the same form, but he's not. So let's. I'm going to be the cold and impassionate one on this one, right? Football is a lot about passion. It's a lot about people essentially going into, oh, look what he did last year. That's fine, but he's not doing it this year. He's not doing it at the same level. So if we can get some cash for a player that we're going to get no money for in 6 months' time, and that can bring in a player that can ultimately perform at the level he is at, if not better, then by all means, it's an absolute no-brainer. And to play devil's advocate last year, had O'Connor not got in and his injury, would we even be talking about this as Craig Dawson anyway? So
True.
it all swings both ways. It's sliding doors moments, you know. It's what it is. And the fact is, he wants out. So let's honour that. If he has been such a good servant, and if he is done everything that we wanted to, and then some, let's honour the fact that he has played through injury. He's played whilst being homesick, and let's say got 6 months. Tell you what, you go move back home. Let us play the Wolves game first, and then you can go. Why not?
Do you think that's been the biggest thing this season with Dawson since it come out that he wanted to move in the summer? Do you think that's had one of the biggest impacts on his performances individually this season, or wanting to go and move away back up north and not really being set on West Ham? Do you think last season he wasn't really thinking that, or how do you guys see it? Because Dawson as a player, we always know what we're going to get with him, but this season we've started to see a lot of what we thought we would see the 2 years prior, and I just want to know what you guys think has been the most contributing factor to that, whether it's the fact that he wants to move away, whether it's just the team as a collective has just been awful this season. Like, how do you view it?
I'd say the collective, but I'll hand over to Sloth.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it's a mix of all the factors. He doesn't. I'm not questioning his professionalism and his attitude. I think that's clear to see. However, I do think that the players around him have gotten worse. We've got to remember that Cresswell and Soufal did not end last season well. Cresswell in particular was, let's face it, diabolical and responsible for a lot of. And Soufal, by any West Ham fan standard, has had a very poor year. So I think it's really the mother time and father time have well and truly caught up to us. This defence has been ageing for a long time. We've not invested in the defence apart from Zuma. He's got a ganky knee that we knew about. That's why Chelsea shipped him out.
Yeah,
and we just simply have not improved to the depth that we needed. And the player that we did bring in as our kind of white knight, unfortunately, picked up the first serious injury he's had in a long, long time, which was always going to happen because it's West Ham. So it's one of those things where the summer was the time to move him on. And Dawson's, if you put in a great season's performance for someone and you go, look, I'm homesick, I'd quite like to go. You get offers and then they go, no, we haven't got the options lined up. I'm sorry, you wanted to leave. You should have got the options lined up. You're going to be ticked off. So I don't blame him, even if his performances have dipped. I think it's just a combination of lots of factors where players aren't performing because we haven't recruited well and they're aging. So
let's talk about the transfer itself, because we are, let's face it, we are in a bit of a relegation battle ourselves, and a team that is down there with us is Wolves. So selling Dawson to Wolves halfway through a season, is there any risk in that? Do you guys think why would we do that to someone that's potentially going to be competing with us down there, and we know potentially what he could offer them at the back end of the season if we are still there come March, April?
I think ultimately you've got to have a bit of a business decision about it. Is it? I don't think it'll make that as much of an impact for us. If you look at it this way, Zuma is close to a return, and again is back. Now, once them two are fit, is Dawson going to play? Unless it's going to, and if he does play, it's going to be very sparingly. So, from our perspective, what benefit are we getting out of Dawson other than maybe a rotation in the cup, maybe in the league, and then just cover for, say, Zuma, right? So from that perspective, it doesn't maybe represent that much value for us in that respect. Obviously, you don't want to improve your relegation rival kind of thing. But let's be honest, just selling them Craig Dawson isn't going to resolve all of their issues. Like us, they can't score. It might help them slightly defensively, but Wolves have always been a good defensive team. Obviously, then they're changing their style. But again, is he going to improve them to a level where it's going to elevate them to a point where they're breaking out of the relegation zone or go on to much greater form? That's difficult to say. I think we've just got to look at it in terms of how often is he going to play. If it's not going to be very much because we're anticipating players to be fit, which is always, touch wood moment for West Ham.
Yeah.
But, it's like, well, do we take money for someone who's 32 years old, probably get us about 2-3 million quid that can pay for a loan?
Yeah. Well, there's two scenarios, right? So the first one is we sell him and we don't replace him. We stick with what we've got for the remainder of the season with Europe, with the FA Cup and with the league. Or we sell him and we replace him with either a loan, it looks like, a homegrown loan, or a homegrown cheap option. So would you be, let me start with this first. Would you guys both be happy if Dawson left and we didn't bring anyone else in?
I think if you're then saying that the options that are coming in are between Michael Keane, Suter out from Stoke, and it doesn't exactly make you go, oh, that's a player that is, if you lose Zuma, who's going to come in and really, step things up. Michael Keane only really operates in a low block. So again, we're meant to be trying to play a more expansive team, more expansive play. But then you look at the players and you go, well, we're clearly not. Suter is a decent championship player. But again, it's one of those ones you look at and go, he's probably only really here because of height and homegrown. So you kind of just go, in some ways, if that's the option, then you're probably better off saying keep or just sell and just deal with Oscar Bonner and Luzial to step up. It's just a thing. The options that we're looking at are, to say they're uninspiring is an understatement. To say that they don't really offer an improvement, I think, is also true. I know Tosin at Fulham has been recently linked, and he is a decent player, has good pace and all, but again, he isn't going to be cheap. I doubt they're going to let him go out on loan to another Premier League club. So, well, where does that leave us? That leaves us having to go and spend money. And I think that's the problem, is that Moyes at the moment isn't necessarily seen as long-term. So the idea of spending money on certain targets isn't seen as the ideal approach, which is why you keep seeing loan deals attached to players.
I think the entirety of the whole club at the moment, with relegation a possibility, the owners and what they potentially will do at the end of the season with the club. And like you mentioned there, with limited funds probably available because of what we spent in the summer as well. So it's a tough one. What do you think, Slough? Do you think it would be better to keep Dawson if we're not going to replace him this season until the end of the summer and let him go for free? Or should we try and get, maybe 1 or 2 million in this January transfer window and risk kind of one of Zuma or Ged getting injured, and then we're very light back there in the centre-back department again?
I think if we're not going to replace him, then you never let a player go. I was going to say before that to Wolves, the only issue would be if you're talking about a player who is like on Arnautovic's level, or that kind of style.
Someone's going to make a difference down there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Dawson doesn't have the capability to do that, but Wolves' problem isn't that they're leaking goals. It's the opposite. So I think if we can replace him, and, there are players out there who can do this, I think we are kind of overstating the importance of a homegrown option. I know we need more homegrown players, but there are lots of homegrown options who just don't have to be a centre-back. I know we were linked with Alex Scott at Bristol City, is it? And I always get the two Bristols mixed up. Bristol and is it Bristol City
City
and
Rovers? Yeah.
But he's a fantastic. And to be honest, I would be quite comfortable if we brought him in, we let Vlasic go, and we're looking at boosting that towards the centre back option. Let Lanzini go as well. To be honest, I think there's a lot of options who, they don't have to be homegrown. I know one of the players that was spoken about potentially leaving in the summer, a team who we know because Thomas Hitzelsberger is their sporting director. But Stuttgart have Mavropanos at the centre back, and he is absolutely rapid. He knows England and London in particular because he came through the Arsenal system. But that's a potential £15 million deal. Young player, as I said, massive, big threat from set pieces. Fits that Moyes style, and would, to be honest, fit any future manager style. I think the issue is just this notion that we have to have a homegrown option. We can fix that across the pitch, but it's just about making sure we recruit properly. Now, I'm more than happy to let Dawson go if that happens, but whether it is the big question.
Well, let's take that as a hypothetical then to end this, because let's say Dawson's gone to Wolves and we've now got around 10-15 million to spend on a centre back to bring in. Doesn't have to be homegrown. Who are you guys picking? Mike, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it's not necessarily a position that I particularly looked at, because I thought in my view, there's far more pressing positions to be moving for. I know who I would have picked, but that would have been a summer deal. So I know what started. I'm just going to stick with that. You know, quite frankly, we should have made the move in the summer. We should have gone for Anil Ahmedhovic. I said it all summer. I've said it for the past 2 years, to be honest, that we should have gone for him. He is homegrown. He cost about £3 million. That was the deal we should have done in the summer. We'd have banked £2 million because we would have sold Dawson for 5. We'd have had a young, he's 24. It's not exactly like a spring chicken. He has mounds of experience and would have been the perfect signing because he can play on the right-hand side of a centre-back free as a kind of, go gallivanting forward. He can just sit there as a defender. That's the move we should have done, but we didn't, because we, again, said we're going to do something and then we bottled it and then we had no plan in which to deal with it. So it's just a typical West Ham situation, to be honest. And when you look at the options, there's not much there if you're going to say 10-15 million, unless you're willing to take a gamble and go for a young centre-back and take that gamble on a young player. But again, it's a premium market, so 10-15 million quid on a player is pushing it. You really have to go for someone either really raw or someone that's unfavoured for that kind of money.
Slough, would you go with that or any different ideas?
I think it's one of those where you kind of have to look at who we can get. Now, there are contracts expiring. I know Evan and Dika is probably too far a reach for us now, with clubs like Barcelona, even Arsenal rumoured to be them. However, you can't rely on anything in this market. You have to make things happen. Mm-hmm. And if we put a bid down for Frankfurt, £10 million, here you go, we'll sign him now. Whether or not he wants to come, you have to force their hand. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think there's a lot of players available. Even if we want to play a back five, I'd look at Ben Sabini, Mönchengladbach, who can play that, can also play left back. Gives you a bit of a physical advantage as well because he's 6 foot. But that delivery link up with his countryman Ben Rama, that's a great option. But I would probably go for Mavropanos. I think he's got the speed. He's one of the fastest defenders in Europe, and he has got that 6'3" frame. He's only 25 as well, so I would probably bid 15 million euros, see what happens. As we know, Vlasic is probably off in the January window. So unless what we want to do is use that money as a first instalment and say, here's 15 million quid on the table. This is what we're going to give you straight up front and then pay in installments. You know, I think that's probably the best option you can get.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough. I think without a clear plan, it looks like from the options we are linked with, it's going to be sort of a cheap loan, homegrown, someone maybe potentially already in the Premier League. And yeah, someone like a Michael Keane, which is easy to, an easy deal to get done. You both just went, no, not having that. But
terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know one Everton fan who has been convinced by him. And, with this, I'm not saying this is impossible because, Dawson wasn't that highly regarded, but you still got quite a few West Brom, Watford fans going, yeah, there's a player there. He will put himself on the line. Whereas I don't know one Everton fan who's gone, yeah, Michael Keane has got this attribute going for him. I just think that is such a
it would be difficult to do it twice, wouldn't it? With Dawson, it was kind of like we stroke a bit of luck. Doing it twice would be very unlikely. So it makes sense to try and recruit in the best way possible, and
he's
bring
played
through
like 200 minutes this season, right? He's literally played one game in the Premier League, 2 in the Cup.
Yeah,
like he's not going to be fully fit. So what he comes in, is Moyes going to chuck him in? Probably not. So you just kind of look at and also he can't play in anything other than a low block. That's why he thrived at Burnley. That's why he's got caught out at Everton, because Everton have tried to play higher. And when they've done that, he got exposed. So what are we doing? We're going to sell a player for a lesser player because he's homegrown. And it's the point we keep saying, poor planning has led to the situation we're in now, and it's going to lead to an even worse situation in the summer as well. We just constantly plan poorly. We poorly invest in positions, and we talk about strikers and dangle that little cherry in everyone's face. So it's like a distraction. It's like dangling a ball of cotton in front of a kitten, and it's just, ooh, and they ignore all the chaos behind.
I'm just waiting to see Mike's reaction when we get that sweet Nat Phillips link.
It's just another player. He's a decent player, but that's it, isn't it? It's if he was as good as everyone says he would, he'd have been snapped up so quickly. And I'm pretty sure he went down into the Championship with Bournemouth and was awful playing first team for Bournemouth.
I think
anyone can look good in a Liverpool team where you don't have to defend. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works here. I'm going to ask you if you want a player who's, massive potential, but probably needs a good loan move away. From what I've gathered, speaking to Liverpool fans, would you take a loan of Joe Gomez?
Absolutely.
I think you would.
Absolutely.
The problem is his injuries, right? It's always been the problem. So you can't necessarily rely on him. That's the thing. He's incredibly athletic, played right back as well as playing centre back. So you would say, well, yeah, probably in our situation you would.
I would easily take Joe Gomez to play.
I would say yes, but it would also depend on the economic side of it, because it needs to be a good deal for West Ham.
I think the only issue is he doesn't look the same since his injury. I know it's a bad injury, but I think if you're saying to Jurgen Klopp, look, we'll give him game time and hopefully boost his confidence, we can do a Lingard with him, then I think they're probably saying, yeah, take him now.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see what's happened with it still anyway, because it looks like we're playing Wolves in just 4 days time, 3-4 days time, and then I think we'd be silly to do it before then. So I don't think the Dawson deal will go through until later on in the window. I think we'll try and leave it as late as we can and make sure we have someone lined up at least before we make that deal. But you never know with West Ham. It's probably likely we'll just get rid of him anyway. So
we'll probably just everyone gets on the bus and they say, sorry, Craig, you just need to stay here. And then we'll go back.
Exactly.
We'll treat it like we're doing Abraham Grant, basically.
Yeah. God. God, I've lost my train of thought. Yes, Craig Dawson to Wolves might be happening. Stay tuned for that one. And if it does happen, we'll make sure to put out another video of who we think we should replace him with, of the options that are coming up, which at the moment don't look that enticing or exciting, to say the least. But we'll see. And yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Babbling Irons. We're doing lots of player scout reports and that kind of thing. So you'll be able to see all the players that we've recommended from last summer and throughout towards next summer transfer window as well. And make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. We're pushing much more content out these days. We aim for a video a day. So yeah, make sure to tune into the channel each day, and we'll put out plenty of content for you. I think there was one that went out this morning around Enzo Lefebvre. So if you're interested in him as a player, go give that a watch and let us know your thoughts. But yeah, let us know in the comments as well of this video what you think about the move, whether it would be a good thing for Craig Dawson to leave now, whether you would be happy with it, or do you see him as more of an integral part of the West Ham team at the moment? And yeah, lads, until next one, come on, you Irons.